Okay, so let's first take a look at music. What is music? The definition of music is vocal or instrumental sounds combined to produce beauty, form, harmony, and expression of emotion. So we have emotions expressed in sounds, basically. Now I want to take a look at sound and how sound would affect our mental. If you looked in that definition, it says that it's an expression of emotion. So the conductor or producer of that musical piece that you're listening to, you are subject to what they want you to feel.
That you can listen to music and not be affected by it, you've lost your whole mind. 100%. Oh no, Brother Chavis, I just like the beat. No, it's impossible. It's impossible. Listen to me, it is scientifically impossible to only listen to the beat. You ingest the words.
So let's look back at the 1960 to the 1970 time frame. There was a Swiss engineer and medical doctor by the name of Hans Jenny. He conducted different experiments using frequencies on different mediums like sand, water, and milk. He published a book, Cynamics. When passing frequencies through these mediums, he noticed it created patterns. The higher the frequency, the more complex the pattern. Now, according to collinsdictionary.com, cymatics is actually the study of wave phenomenon. It is a therapy in which sound waves are directed at the body with the aim of promoting health. Now, what types of sounds do we have in our music today? And where did our music come from? Because when I look back in history, there was only one form of music, and that music was sacred music. Sacred music was used for the glorification of Most High and praises to our Lord and Savior Messiah.
When you look at sacred music, you can only get the impression that it existed before mankind, especially when you look at Job chapter 38 verses 4 through 7. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest, or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? This is where it gets interesting. When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. So we see the angels were singing. The angels were worshiping with music, song, and praise in heaven.
Now there was another form of music that popped up around the 11th century. This music was known as secular music. Secular means separate from religion, meaning you don't take religion into consideration. Secular music came about the medieval time frame. It was used during the Renaissance to steal or persuade authority from the church.
One of the things you have to understand about music is music seeks to draw you from God's side to the cool side.
So nothing new under the sun indeed. We do see that worldly music or secular music was a problem with the church back then, and it seems to be a problem with the church today.
You know, we got the cool music. We got the cool clothes. We got it going on over here. Our parties are off the chain. You want to be with us?
Let's look a little bit deeper into the secular music.
Said to be the first important secular music in the vernacular was troubadour song. Vernacular is the language or dialect spoken by the ordinary people in a particular country or region. Troubadour song influenced many countries for around 200 years. Now, I checked troubadour on Wiki and got a French or English composer and performer of Old Occitan lyric. Let's look at Old Occitan lyric. Old Occitan or Old Provençal was the early of the Occitano-Romance languages. Romance language is actually the modern language that evolved from Vulgar Latin in the 6th through the 9th century. And troubadour song, by definition on Google, would be one of a class of medieval lyric poets who wrote songs and poems mainly themed of love.
So now we have a better look at music and the different kinds of music, but let's break that down a little bit further. Music exiting the speakers is in the form of a sound wave. A sound wave is a frequency, so let's see what frequencies have to do with this.
Okay, now I may pronounce this wrong. If I do, excuse me, but Dr. Andrija Puharich in the 1950s through the 1960s experimented on ELF waves. The ELF waves would change the RNA and DNA by splitting hydrogen bonds to cause a person a higher or lower frequency rate. He discovered raising or lowering a person's frequency triggered a variety of emotions ranging from feeling good as in an altered state, riotous behavior, all the way to depression. Dr. Puharich tried to present this to the military, and they wouldn't believe him. He then turned this information over to different dignitaries on the Western nations, who later burned down his house in New York. Why would they burn down his house? Why would they hush him? So that right there kind of made me want to look a little bit more into frequencies and what he had found. What were they trying to keep the public from finding out? It drew my attention to a standard tuning of 440 hertz. 440 hertz was just introduced in 1940 to the world by the US. In a paper titled Musical Cult Control, Dr. Leonard Horowitz states, the music industry features this imposed frequency that is herding populations into greater aggression, psychosocial agitation, and emotional distress, leaving people predisposed to physical illnesses. Says medicalveritas.org. So something wasn't right about frequency. Something wasn't right about this standard tone introduced in the 1940s. What was it before this standardized tone? Okay, now what was the standardized tuning before 440? Now Googling that, I came across a 432, which was actually known as the scientific tuning. 432 is interesting because when you look at Earth gives off a natural frequency of its own, ranging from 7.8 to about 8 hertz. This is known as the Schumann resonance. When you move, or let's say, when you take 8 hertz and you move up the scale 5 octaves, you come up with 256 hertz. Now, this leaves you with a note A that has a frequency of 432 hertz, which would be known as a natural frequency. That's really important to remember because Earth's frequency and the frequency spectrum of our human brain waves are identical. So now 440 hertz has got my attention. I want to know where it's from. Where did this 440 hertz, how did it get introduced? Who introduced it? Looking at who introduced it, came across Rockefeller Foundation's military. They commercialized music.
They got distribution, so they can sign the brothers to these subsidiary labels. They got them. just said that they were going to make you calling yourself a nigga very popular. It talks about that on page 236, I believe. And I tell people all the time, I say, listen, this ain't Professor Griff. It says, with their cash and superior industry position, these white entrepreneurs installed new leadership over hip-hop, and they began to promote a nefarious niggerization of rap music. It says, KRS-One and Public Enemy, with the message that KRS-One and Public Enemy, they said, we were reaching the masses of young black people. And then NWA niggas with attitudes would be paid off and put in a position where they would neutralize Public Enemy and brothers like KRS-One. And then came the gangster rap, thugging, balling, now pimping. Now the metrosexual is about to take over hip-hop. And your children, your nephew, your niece, and all the little ones, the shorties now, Tay-Tay, Riri, Man, and Twan and them, in the hood, gonna wear skirts, watch. Man purses.
Maybe that's why Dr. Horowitz said that this frequency is herding populations into aggression and psychosocial agitation. This is getting weird. MedicalVeritas.org quotes a musical revolution is needed to advance world health and peace.
They brainwash our people with the mind control theory. That's what they do. So that makes our people like it. They keep playing that same song. The same song keep playing, you start to like it. You start to get probed with it. You start to get cloned with it. So then for the clone exists, then it just takes over. It takes over the human body. It takes over the spirit. It takes over the soul. It takes over the human body. It takes over the spirit. It takes over the soul.
Okay, so that's the sound and music part. So what role is our brain taking in all this? When you look at the brain, if you take an EEG or an electroencephalogram that is used to detect the abnormalities related to electrical activity of the brain. It actually tracks and records brainwave patterns. So your brain is actually generating brainwave patterns. It's actually considered a wave pattern or a wave because it's cyclic wave behavior. So if your brain emits frequency, then you better believe it can receive frequency as well. That brings to mind brainwave entertainment. Brainwave entertainment is interesting because it's any method that causes your brainwave frequency to fall into sync with the specific frequency. So when you break that down, you look at it, basically your brain falls into sync to any outside dominant frequency. That is the connection that we were looking for.
In Britain, had some of the best equipment that could be produced, way ahead of its time in recording studios. But they knew how it would affect the mind, and they were doing experiments even before the Beatles using electroencephalograph machines and playing types of music to youngsters especially who are more prone to altered states, you might call it, even close to a meditative state, which some music can put you into. Classical music can also do the same. And they also knew that they could bring out anger by certain types of music. And at the moment, they're using a lot of techno sounds to get us used to computerized sounds, because one day we'll hear that in our heads from all brain chips. We'll hear the almost mechanical computer-type operating sound going through our heads, and that'll be a new type of music to the public.
An interesting example, a hospital in Toronto. This hospital performs a surgery on the femur, which is considered the most painful procedure in the world. The anesthesia for this almost kills the patient. Scientists have figured out that after the patient has listened to Baroque classical music for 15 minutes, the patients only needed half the dosage. If that isn't enough to convince you, let's take a look at what they call a tritone. A tritone is the distance or gap between two notes, an interval of 3 whole tones as between C and F sharp. Now the tritone it grabs our attention because this is what is known as the devil in music.
The devil has always used music as a cue to bow. Be careful, young lady, what you let yourself listen to. Careful, young man, what you allow in your earbuds. Be careful, because you don't know what music does to you psychologically as it plays.
Tritone is used throughout Western music. A study was done where participants were grouped into two groups. One had been exposed to this gap interval or this tritone, and one without. The groups were then given items to group. The group that had not been exposed to the tritone organized their items into a more complex group system, showing they were thinking on a broader scale. The tone was affecting their mental abilities. So the brains are actually responding to the gaps in the music or the gaps in the pattern of the music, and it's having an effect on the way that your brain operates.
To making things tick. And I feel like a fraud.
You worship all week long. I didn't worship. I'm not worshiping. Yes, you are. You're sitting in your car driving, bobbing your head. What is it? This is worship. And they know it. That's why Jay-Z starts his concerts by saying, put your hands up. I'm the J to the H to the O to the B to the A. Jehovah. He calls himself Jehovah. And he says, put your hands up. Do it.
And there was something else here that I thought was interesting. You said Jay-Z knows the truth, but he chose sides with evil in order to be accepted in the corporate. Jay-Z conceals the truth from the black community and promotes the lifestyle of the beast.
I just think that the whole idea of celebrity and fame has become really convoluted and, kind of bastardized, like whereas fame used to be the byproduct of success, and now it's the ultimate goal. And if your ultimate goal is to be famous, then you're gonna do a lot to get there, like sign your name in blood in a contract with the devil.
And sing notes and sing strong and do all these things that when I'm just by myself, I can't do. And I remember right before I performed, I raised my hands up, and it was kind of the first time I felt something else come into me.
Roman is a crazy boy lives in me, and he says the things that I don't want to say. He was born, just a few months ago. I think he was born out of rage. He was conceived in rage, so he bashes everyone. He threatens to beat people, and he's violent.
What was going on in my life at 15, and that's how I got introduced to the music industry. I swear I wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music. Yeah. But it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil.
Gaga, we can't get, the frequency's weird, and, it's sounding a little bit strange, and I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer,
soul to the devil. I know it's a crappy deal. Music came with a few toys like a Happy Meal.
Don't sleep, don't fall for whatever they feed you. You know, a lot of kings were poisoned because they were loving of their subjects. And a lot of times, you know, there's just wickedness. And you have to know that there's wickedness in the world. You have to know that there are people who are just here to profit and to put their foot on the back of people who are poor.
Topic. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, baby.